Today we are going to be talking about wanders. We're going to be talking about the wanders. Now, I want to reference some scripture first. So, before I come on camera, I wanted to do that because it's right here in front of me. But, the scripture is Psalm 78. And there's only one Psalm is a whole scripture. But the scripture I wanted to focus on was that in Psalm 78, verse 11, they forgot his works and the wonders that he had shown them, right? And so, realistically, I haven't read Psalm 70. I've read it before, but I forget everything that it was about. So I was thinking about ultimately what I call, when I was in Chicago, I used to do this thing called the word of the day. What's the word of the day? Kind of like, what's God telling me today? Or what do I need to focus on today? What's the meaning or the purpose today? And so today, as I was sitting there, wondering, about whether or not what I should be talking about, I wanted to reference the wanders. And so a lot of people in the scriptures, a lot of Christians and so on and so forth, they want you to believe that Jesus, and this is kind of where the wanders goes into things, they want you to believe that Jesus and the Old Testament and a lot of these prophets and people were like magicians, kind of like Gandalf or Merlin or Harry Potter and things like that, when realistically that's not even true. So the Church of Scientology is actually a church that believes in science behind much of God's ministry and so on and so forth. I haven't ever partaken in the Scientology ministry. I don't know. However, through my own, journey, I've really come to start to believe that there is a way, scientifically or logically, that Jesus realistically healed people, and that the prophets created and did these wonders that most of the people, when the scripture talks about it, are remember. And so how I want to kind of lay out this whole foundation is realistically is how we think and feel in our own modern world about wonders. And I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, just a couple of minutes, like 4 or 5 probably. But however, we think it's a wonder when LeBron James does what he does. We're amazed that he can do the things that he's done, right? We're amazed that Obama became president of the United States of America, the candidate far, far and behind. We're amazed that the Wright brothers put a plane in the sky, that spaceships go to space. We're amazed at all of these wonders. And so realistically, although the Bible doesn't talk about flying planes and all these other things like that, it's easy for us as Christians or as believers, or however you want to define that. I don't really consider myself a Christian. But it's easy for Christians to look at the Bible and be, Jesus did this and it was just some magical, mysterious way. And the problem with that is that, one, it goes against the ministry of Christ if you really fully understand it, because there's a fivefold ministry, and among the fivefold ministry is healings and miracles, wonders, right? Everybody was in awe of these miracles that Jesus was realistically doing. And so in our current today, I was thinking about, before I came here, I was doing some prayer and meditating. I was getting down on myself because it's like, I'm a poor man. A lot of us are poor, right? But I've also been on this journey and this mission. And so realistically, it's easy for people to start looking at me and looking at you and looking at other people, and because you don't have the materials or you don't have the foundation that everybody else does, or what's expected at that point, it's easy for them to criticize you. But they really don't understand that, like Jesus, who could be working in your life like I believe he's working in my life, then guess what? They're going to miss out on these wonders, right? The scripture 11, right, in Psalm 78 is, they did not keep, this is 10, they did not keep God's covenant but refused to walk according to his law. 11, they forgot his works and the wonders that he had shown them, right? And so we forget how easy, once we have wealth and once God has built us up and established us and gave us a foundation, it's easy for, let's say, I've worked with a lot of Korean Americans and some Koreans over the past couple of years. And so it's easy for Koreans today to realistically look at someone like me or in other situations and be like, oh, well, a bum or whatever it is, right? A beggar, right? But the reality of it is that Korea was in that same situation that I'm in right now 40 to 50 years ago. Korea was homeless. They had no home. I mean, they were fighting over where they were going to live practically. They had no money. They needed help. They were being ultimately ransacked by the Japanese, and Kim Jong-un's grandfather at that point had spent his whole life working for the Red Army. This is from the history facts that I've looked up myself. And then he brings the Red Army into Korea to legitimately rid Korea of the Japanese rule at that time, or the occupying of Korea by Japan. And so it's easy for us, as God continues to build us up and goodness falls into our life and we have a foundation and we live in wealth or we live in luxury, it's easy for us to be like, oh, well, we're going to criticize these other people who are currently in the same situation that we were once upon a time 40 to 50 years ago. The kids of Korea will never understand as much about the parents of Korea who had to suffer and to fight and to go to war in order to have South Korea and Seoul and all of these other things like that. So the reality of as a whole is that, one, if you're someone that God is legitimately speaking into, don't beat yourself up. You know, this is for me as much as it is for you, right? Don't beat yourself up if God is using you and you have a basic foundation and you don't have too much. If God is speaking into you, then guess what? You don't have anything to worry about. He's going to sow that into your life somehow in some way because you're doing what is right. You're staying with the covenant. You're staying with the Scripture. You're staying with God at that point, in the relationship with God, and that's what's important. It doesn't matter what anybody else is saying. This could be these, and I'll complete this with this. This could be the most wicked country in all of the world, right? That would ultimately just be like, if you would just put the word down and your relationship alone, then we would give you everything that you want, right? Okay, fair enough. Yeah, sounds stupid to me. I mean, this relationship that you have with God, right? You know, if you've cleaned the mug and you've cleaned yourself, and God has poured this water out into your life, you wouldn't want to get rid of that. Not if you already know what it's like. Not if you've gone so far already. You see, you'd rather die, and that's how I feel. I'd rather die. I would rather die than to open up this right here and pour this all over the ground. You know, what am I going to do? Lap it up like a dog? I'm never going to get that back. You might as well just cut me down and kill me in the puddle of the Spirit that had poured out of me after that, because that's exactly what's going to happen. And if you don't believe that, look at Saul. Why do you think Saul keeps trying to kill King David all the time? Because King David got what was inside of Saul.